My name is Emily, and I'm 29 years old. I lived in a house that used to belong to my parents. It wasn't fancy, but it had good memories, birthday parties, late-night talks, and quiet Sunday mornings. After my parents passed away, my younger sister Megan and I stayed there together. At least, that's what everyone thought. What most people didn't know was that the house was legally mine. My parents had changed the paperwork before they passed, giving me full ownership. They did it because I was the one taking care of them during their last years, driving them to doctors, handling the bills, and putting my own life on hold. But I never told Megan. I didn't want to start a fight or make her feel left out. Looking back now, maybe that was my mistake. Megan was always the wild one, the kind of person who wanted everything her way. Lately, she'd been hanging around a new guy who seemed shady. She started acting strange. She barely worked, partied a lot, and spent money like water. I knew something was coming, but I didn't expect what happened next. One night, Megan stormed into the living room while I was reading on the couch. "I need $20,000, she said like she was asking for a cup of coffee. I looked up slowly. "What?" "I'm starting a new business with Jason," she said, crossing her arms. "He's got connections, and this could make us rich. I just need your help alone." A loan? She hadn't even paid back the $500 she borrowed 2 months ago. "Megan, I'm sorry. That's a lot of money. And I don't even know Jason." "It's too risky," I said gently. Her face changed. Her eyes narrowed. "So that's it? You'd rather see me fail?" "No. I want you to be smart," I replied. She didn't say another word. She just stood there, breathing hard, then turned around and walked away. I thought the conversation was over. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke up early like always. I had a job interview that day, nothing big, just a local office assistant role. But I was excited. Things had been hard lately, and I really needed the steady paycheck. I walked into the kitchen and stopped cold. My suitcase was sitting by the door. At first, I thought maybe Megan was pulling some kind of joke. But when I opened the fridge and saw that my food was missing, completely gone, my stomach sank. That's when Megan walked in. She was wearing sunglasses and sipping iced coffee like nothing happened. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "You're leaving," she said simply. "Excuse me? I gave you a choice last night. You refused to help me. So now you're out. Jason's moving in this weekend, and we need the space." I stared at her, completely speechless. "You don't get to make that decision," I finally said. Megan walked closer and smirked. "You're not the only one who lived here, Emily. I've had enough of you acting like you own the place." I didn't say anything for a moment. I just picked up my bag slowly and looked her in the eyes. "You think this house is yours?" she asked, laughing under her breath. "You're nothing but a mooch. You should be thanking me for letting you stay here this long." That was it. I walked out the door, not because I was weak, but because I had something she didn't. The truth. She had no idea that legally the house was mine. My name was the only one on the deed. I had kept it quiet out of love, out of kindness.
But now?
Now she had crossed the line, and she was about to learn what happens when you kick someone out of a house they already own. I spent that night at a friend's apartment, small, cramped, but warm. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Megan's voice in my head, calling me a mooch, telling me to leave, throwing me out of the very house I had paid to fix, cleaned every week, and kept running when she was too busy partying. But this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. The next morning, I pulled out the folder I had kept in my desk drawer for years, the one marked House Documents, Private. I'd taken it with me the day I left, just in case. Inside it were the original signed property transfer papers, notarized and dated. My parents had made it clear. The house belonged to me, not both of us.
Me.
They had thanked me for putting my life on hold to care for them. Megan hadn't even been around when Mom got sick. But still, I hadn't rubbed it in her face. I never wanted to throw that in her face. Now I realized she never would have done the same for me. I called the lawyer who had helped my parents with the property documents years ago, Mr. Bennett. He was retired, but his daughter had taken over the firm. Within 24 hours, I was sitting in a clean office across from a younger version of him, explaining what had happened. "You have full ownership," she confirmed, flipping through the documents. "You can evict anyone currently living there or sell the property if you choose." I nodded slowly. "Can I sell it immediately?" She paused, looked surprised, then smiled. "You absolutely can." I leaned back in the chair and let out a deep breath. Not because I felt powerful, but because I finally felt free. Megan had kicked me out thinking she was untouchable. She had no idea she was squatting in my house. I didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. I wanted closure and peace. But I had a feeling she wasn't going to make it easy. And she didn't. The next few days moved quickly. I didn't go back to the house. I didn't text Megan. I didn't argue or shout or explain anything. I let her sit comfortably in what she thought was her home, completely unaware that every room, every wall, and every floorboard was about to slip out from under her. With the lawyer's help, I found a local buyer, someone who wanted to flip the property and was ready to pay in cash. He didn't care that someone was still living there as long as I had the legal right to sell. And I did. We scheduled a walkthrough. I warned him not to interact with my sister and that the house might be occupied by someone who believes they're the owner. He chuckled. "That's not the first time I've heard that." We signed the paperwork on a Thursday. By Friday, the sale was finalized. And just like that, the house was no longer mine, it was his. Megan just didn't know it yet. That weekend, I went with a new owner to the property. He brought 2 movers and a local sheriff's deputy, just in case. When we walked up the front steps, Megan opened the door wearing pajamas and holding a bowl of cereal. She squinted at us. "What the hell is this?" The buyer introduced himself politely. "Hi, I'm the new owner. You'll need to leave by the end of the day." Megan laughed hard. "What are you talking about? This is my house." I stepped forward, staying calm. "No, Megan. It was never yours. It was mine. And I just sold it." Her cereal bowl slipped from her hand and shattered on the porch. "You're lying." I shook my head. "I have all the documents. The house has a new legal owner. You need to leave. Today." She screamed, threw insults, threatened to call the police. So we let her. And when they arrived, the officers simply looked over the paperwork and told her calmly, "You've been trespassing, ma'am. You need to pack your things and go." Watching her face in that moment, the mix of confusion, anger, and fear, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt nothing at all. She kicked me out without blinking. I simply returned the favor, with a signature. Megan eventually left the house, but not quietly. She cried. She cursed. She told the officers I was cruel and jealous and mentally unstable. She even accused the buyer of forging the documents until the officer showed her the official court records with my name on them and the new owner's signature. She didn't even take all her stuff, just stormed off with a duffel bag, leaving behind boxes, shoes, and the framed photos our parents once hung in the hallway. She didn't say goodbye. Not that I expected her to. The buyer thanked me for making the sale smooth and offered to handle the rest. As I walked away from the house for the last time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. But I wasn't done yet. That night, I opened my laptop and wrote everything down. Not to embarrass her, I didn't use names. I just needed to get it off my chest. I titled the post, "My sister kicked me out of my own house, so I sold it without telling her." It was supposed to be just a vent post on a community blog about personal justice. But by morning, it had over 8,000 shares. By the end of the week, a local news station reached out, asking if I'd like to share more details. They blurred out names and locations, and let me tell my story in my own words. The comments were wild. Some people called me cold. Others said I was too kind for not doing it sooner. Most were just shocked by how calm I stayed through it all. Megan saw it too. I know because she messaged me. "Megan, you humiliated me. Everyone knows it's about me." Me. "I never said your name." Megan. "You made me look like a joke." Me. "No. You did that all by yourself." She didn't reply after that. But someone else did. A man named Michael emailed me after reading the post. Said he was from out of town but had inherited a property nearby and wanted advice on how to handle a complicated situation with tenants. We ended up talking for 2 hours. Funny how things fall apart and come together all at once. While my life slowly began to settle, Megan started to fall apart. Fast. A few weeks after the sale, I learned she'd been staying with Jason, the same guy she'd wanted the $20,000 for. But it didn't last. From what I heard, he kicked her out after she couldn't pay her share of rent, or maybe he found someone else to scam. Either way, she ended up couch hopping with old friends and strangers who barely knew her. Then came the biggest twist of all. One morning, I got a call from the lawyer's office. The assistant sounded cautious. "Emily, we found something strange during the property review after the sale. You might want to come in." When I arrived, they showed me a copy of a forged document, one I had never signed. It was dated 6 months before the house sale and showed an attempt to add Megan's name to the property deed. My heart dropped. "She tried to claim partial ownership illegally?" I asked. The assistant nodded. "We suspect she may have used an old notary stamp. It didn't pass verification." My hands were shaking. Megan had gone further than I thought. This wasn't just emotional manipulation. It was fraud. We filed a police report that day. With the legal firm's backing and documented evidence, it didn't take long. Megan was officially charged with attempted property fraud and document tampering. She was arrested 3 days later. The mugshot wasn't public, but word still got around. Old neighbors started whispering. Her friends started backing away. She lost every shred of control she thought she had. A few weeks later, I was granted a restraining order. She could no longer come near me, text me, or contact me in any way. For the first time in years, I didn't have to look over my shoulder. And yet, the story wasn't quite finished. Because karma wasn't done with her yet, and neither was fate with me. I thought that would be the end of it. Megan arrested, peace finally restored, and my story shared with the world. But life had one last surprise waiting. A few weeks after Megan's arrest, I received a letter in the mail from a bank I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was a scam, just junk. But then I saw the names printed on the envelope. Henry and Patricia Callahan, joint account. My parents. I froze. Inside was a formal notice about an inactive account they had opened years ago. A safety deposit box was attached to it. It had been untouched for almost a decade. According to the bank, I was listed as the sole beneficiary. I scheduled an appointment immediately. I needed to see it with my own eyes. When I opened the box at the bank, I found an envelope, yellowed with age. Inside was a letter from my mother. Her handwriting made my throat tighten. "Emily, if you're reading this, it means something pushed you to a place where you had to walk alone. You were always the one who stood quietly, carried everyone, and got nothing in return. This is our thank you, our backup. Use it to build a life that's finally yours." Underneath the letter was a cashier's check for $50,000. Tears filled my eyes. I never knew they had this kind of money saved. And they had saved it for me, just in case. That day, I walked out of the bank not just with money, but with something more powerful. Closure. I wasn't the weak older sister Megan had painted me to be. I was the one who held it all together until I didn't have to anymore. That $50,000 became the seed money for something new. Something mine. I used it to start a small online shop, something I had dreamed of for years but never had the courage or funds to try. And as I signed the business license papers, I whispered quietly, "Thank you, Mom and Dad. I finally understand." 6 months later, I was living in a sunlit apartment across town, small but peaceful, with a balcony that overlooked a quiet street and the kind of silence that feels earned. My online store had taken off slowly but steadily. I sold handmade items, custom journals, and self-care boxes. Orders trickled in from across the country. I packed them with care, added thank you notes, and smiled every time I heard the little cha-ching sound on my phone. I was finally building something that belonged only to me. As for Megan, she was out of jail now, having served a short sentence and paid a fine. I had no idea where she was staying, and honestly, I didn't care. We were strangers now, not because I hated her, but because I had no more space left in my life for someone who only brought destruction. The restraining order was still active. One evening, as I was wrapping up packages, I got a text from an unknown number. Just one line. "I hope you're happy." I didn't reply, because I was. The Emily, who once kept quiet to keep the peace, was gone. In her place was someone stronger, wiser, and finally free. My story wasn't one of revenge. It was a story of taking back power, of learning when silence is strength, and when it's time to walk away for good. I stood on the balcony that night with a cup of tea, watching the sky turn orange and gold. A soft breeze passed over me, like a whisper from the past. I smiled, because in the end, I didn't just lose a house. I gained my life.